Thank you, Count Corla, and it's welcome to have an opportunity to work in a budgetary structure where we do have a measured opportunity to reflect on income tax, to reflect on where we are in our economic situation, to reflect on the state of the challenges that the country faces and the budgetary responses that are necessary and appropriate. And I always welcome this process of the summer economic statements and the autumn statements because it shows a state that is reflective, that's thinking, that is planning, that is reflecting on the challenges and the information as it's coming, and doing so in a really open and transparent way. And you look back over the last 10 years and you see even how the budgetary process has evolved, and yes, it's very dull and so on, and it's a bit of an anorak subject, but it's one of those things about the state that has developed into the responsible, mature, evolved political institutions that are one of the hallmarks of the developed, democratic, mature state. But one of the other things is setting out, setting out the reality of the need to protect the centre, the reality to need to protect where our income tax is coming from and the conditions around that. And there is so much discussion in this House of failed state and a narrative of Ireland having failed in so many different ways. A sort of glib attacks on those in the middle ground who create enterprise, who take risk, glib attacks on those people who work and pay tax all of the time and who don't receive any state supports. A sort of a constant contempt for enterprise and a contempt, it seems, for those who work in it, despite being so dependent on it for jobs and job creation. And over the last 10 years, over the last number of years, there has been over 700,000 jobs created by enterprise, not by government. Government creates the conditions for jobs. Only the conditions for jobs, but government can just as easily undo that and take away the conditions in which jobs are created and enterprise are created. And you just have to ask a basic question, because I never hear it from opposition benches. Do we want to create and protect jobs? Yes or no? Are you interested in creating and protecting and maintaining jobs? Yes or no? Is that something that you're interested in? Because I don't ever hear it. Deputy Ryan has correctly mentioned agriculture and small enterprise. They are part of what we're talking about when we talk about jobs. When we talk about income tax cuts, I was challenged by Deputy McLaughlin of income tax cuts for the rich. Tax cuts for middle income earners, which you voted against. And so I ask these questions, are you interested in creating and maintaining jobs? Because I remember unemployment at 15 and 16%. And I remember the social impact, as I'm sure you do, as I'm sure deputies across the House do, the social impact on families of losing jobs, the effect of immigration. And in this state, there is no mention in this populist narrative of how that's been reversed, of how immigration has been reversed, of how jobs have been able to be created by enterprises, not governments. Governments create the condition, but enterprises. And we have, in that same time, increased the minimum wage, moving to a living wage, and substantially increased the supports available for employees of all different organisations, whether that's sick pay, the retention of tips, we're talking about different types of leave for different social situations, whether at miscarriage or anything else, and they're all important and they're all welcome, but none of them matter anything if you don't actually have a job against which to be able to bench it. And these are sort of meaningless words at a time of full employment, but we have seen how volatile we have seen how volatile the economy can be, we have seen how volatile our politics and our geopolitics has been. And the key watchword in the summer economic statement for me is uncertainty. The near-term fiscal outlook is highly uncertain, and of course it is when you look at what's happened in the last 5 years, never mind the last 2 years, highly uncertain. And we've been surprised on the upside by certain tax revenues, and we know, we have full notice that they are uncertain tax revenues, that corporate tax in particular is uncertain, and that we cannot build an economy or a society based on that. So we have to take the steps that we can to preserve and protect that, not take steps that would actually tax it and actually make it worse. So if you work in the private sector, if you have a private sector job, just lean in and listen in beyond the rhetoric and ask, what are jobs, what are political parties saying about my job? What are they saying about my pay? Sinn Féin, for example, proposed 4 separate taxes worth nearly €1 billion on jobs, including employers' PRSI. That is a tax on jobs. What does it mean? What does that even mean? It means fewer jobs. It means less risk-taking by employers. It means a more expensive job out of the pot of revenue that they have available to be able to pay income. So it means it doesn't mean any sort of increase. Second question. Do we want to pay a salary and try to keep people out of poverty? Yes or no? Yes or no? Are we happy to take steps on tax to try to keep people out of social welfare bans? You can't on the one hand say, as deputies do, people must be kept out of poverty, and on the other try to vote against and complain about tax cuts that attempt to do exactly that for workers, claim to represent workers, but not workers who are paying tax and whom we want to give indexation to so that they pay less tax and have a better opportunity to stay out of poverty. These are the sorts of inconsistencies that, yeah, they might be policy inconsistencies, but they mean real things for real people. But we only ever hear rhetoric and glib attacks on enterprise, glib attacks on tax cuts. But what is targeted at is keeping people in jobs, keeping people in well-paid jobs, improving the conditions, genuinely improving the conditions for people in jobs, and making sure that they take home as much of their pay, which they need more than ever now because of the cost of living increase. And I think it's really important. So in the preparation for Budget 2023, the priorities that I have and that Fine Gael have are maintaining the conditions in a highly volatile and uncertain world where we can retain employment, where we can continue to attract employment, because we know what a hugely important social measure that is, as well as an economic measure. It's about making work pay and making sure that people, particularly on middle incomes, who are so caught and so pressed in between not receiving state supports and offering them the chance of taking home more of their pay. Those are the things that are most important to my party and to me, and I look forward to the budget that delivers that.
Thank you.